Franchise mode is getting 10 big changes in Madden 24, and I'm going to break them all down in this video. And at the end of those 10 things, I'm also going to talk about some of the stuff that's staying the same and some of the things that could be getting updated during the year, as I've been seeing a lot of questions about what franchise mode is going to look like in the new game. Some of the footage you may see on the screen will be of Madden 23 because we don't have any actual footage of franchise mode yet until they release it, but I was able to play the game early so I can give you all of the info that I know so far. And if you still are looking to try the game early for yourself, I did get a few extra beta codes this week, so all you gotta do is be subscribed and just follow me on my social media so I have a way to reach out to you and give you a beta code. Number one, the biggest change is the reintroduction of minicamp. There's 25 drills that you can use in both the off season and during your weekly training for your 3 focus players each and every week. They brought back some of the fan favorites from back in the day, like rushing attack, some of the passing drills, the punter, and the field goal drill, but with most of the drills, they added different elements to them. They updated them, they added different targets, they added different obstacles to these mini games, and they also added quite a few new mini games that we've never seen in Madden before. They're really fun to use during the offseason to upgrade your individual players on the spot, but they also provide extra XP as well. And you can also earn additional XP when you use them on your 3 focus players each week. And I believe these do also count as extra snaps towards your players with hidden development traits so that you can unlock their dev trait even sooner. Number 2, relocation updates. There's about 34 new cities, I believe, with relocation. There's 31 teams. I don't know if the teams themselves are all brand new. I think there may be a couple. Most of the teams themselves are the same, but I do believe they have updated logos. They all have new uniforms, and you can pick any team you want with any city. So in the past, you would only have a certain amount of options depending on the city you wanted to relocate. Now, any team can be used with any city you want to relocate to. And each team is going to have 3 separate uniforms: home, away, and an alternate, which we did not see before. All of the uniforms are updated and look more modern day, and with the 3 uniforms, you can mix and match to create a bunch of different options now that you have the alternate uniforms as well, which I think is a nice touch. You can also relocate the team as a coach now as well, which is something a lot of people asked for, and you can also relocate immediately. You don't have to wait a year into the future. You can just do it from the start of your franchise, which I think is another nice touch. Number 3, trading overhaul. We now have 6 trade slots, which is another thing that has been asked about for years. It's kind of a small thing that makes a big difference because now you can do the more realistic trades. You can also trade up to 3 years worth of draft picks now as well, so you get an entire extra year of draft picks that you can put in there. So now when you put big name guys on the trade block, you can actually get some realistic packages for these players. It also, in my opinion, seems like they give you better trade offers. I remember last year when I was messing around with franchise, it seemed like a lot of the trade block offers were kind of mid, but now it seems like you actually get some pretty decent offers, especially if you put a good player on the trade block. Another nice touch to trading, which we'll go a little bit deeper on later when I talk about commissioner tools, is you can now adjust a slider for how hard or how easy you want it to be to trade for players. Number 4, updated coaching trees. The head coach and coordinators now have additional coaching trees. I believe the skill trees are also scheme specific, which makes finding the right coaches more important for your team. There are supposedly some new things in the coaching tree as well. They didn't just split them up into a separate tree. I believe they actually added quite a few new things to unlock within the coaching trees. And again, with the coaches being scheme specific, it should make it, in theory, more important to hire the right coordinator instead of just hiring anybody. But it is Madden, so we have to see how that works in practice once the game is truly out. Number 5, contract restructuring. You can now restructure contracts to free up cap space. However, you don't have full control over how you spread out the money, although this is said to be in the plans at some point. They're gonna add that. Maybe it's a next year thing, maybe it's in an update, who knows. But for now, you can save cap space by utilizing this feature, so it's kind of a more of a bare bones version of it. You can't really get too intricate with it yet. I think in the future, what I would like to see, as others would like to see, is kind of having the option of how you want to spread money out. Also just having more freedom over front loading and back loading contracts and stuff like that. But for the time being, you can at least have the ability to free up that cap space, which makes it a useful feature, but I would like to see it more fleshed out. You can now also negotiate with players who need contracts immediately instead of waiting, so that's also another very small but good quality of life fix. Number 6, abilities. You can now get up to 4 superstar abilities per player as they go up in overall. This is another thing I saw a lot of people request over the years, because outside of the quarterback position, you can only get 2 abilities on players. Well, now you can get up to, I think, 3 if they're around a 90 overall, and I believe as you get higher, maybe 90 95 plus, you can unlock that 4th ability as well. So that's actually going to be really good for team building and just kind of making your team more powerful if you can build your guys up to those 90 plus overalls. Number 7, draft class generators. Now, the NFL draft is one of the areas that franchise could use the most work. I think the draft experience as a whole definitely needs a lot of work, but something they did last year and they've kind of further built on this year are the draft class generators. Here's an article from GameSpot. They were also at the preview event for Madden 24 and some of the other writers from other sites as well. So they've put some of this info out already. And this is what they had to say. They just summed it up really good. So I'm going to read what they wrote. Another change for the GM minded players comes during the NFL draft. While the scouting system seems to be unchanged from Madden 22's overhaul, draft classes have been expanded to include more player variety, including a few archetypal draftees who may be clones of legendary players, some who possess 99 rated attributes like break tackle even as a rookie, and also out of position players who may be drafted at one spot but thrive in another, like the QB turned wide receiver trajectory we see some players follow. These players will remain rare, Dugan told me, but some such players can be found at least some of the time now that there are 50 new and unique draft generators added to Madden 24. Another example they gave us when we were down there is you might see a guy that has the build of a Harold Carmichael, a 6'8 wide receiver. You can definitely find these guys more often, but they're still going to be rare as they should because they're generational talents. And also, I believe another nice touch to this whole thing is when you're actually editing draft classes now, it appears that the editor that was in the face of the franchise for all of those years is now able to be used for editing the draft classes. So you can actually make these people look way better because the preset faces, let's be honest, that is like PS2 level. It's so old and they just look really bad. Number 8, computer AI. Now, this is something they told us about when we were down there, but apparently the computer AI is going to be a little smarter in how they react to things. So if you're running the same defense versus a quarterback, especially a good QB, they're going to start making more audibles, switching plays. If you're running a cover 3 all the time, they're going to probably switch up and try to attack the seams again, especially guys like Mahomes and those top end QBs. Apparently there's also going to be adaptive AI on the defensive side of the ball, especially versus the run, not so much the pass, but if you're just kind of spamming the same stretch play over and over, the computer is theoretically supposed to eventually start recognizing it and shutting it down. But I think the biggest thing with this feature, if it works properly, because we've heard them talk about, customizing the computer AI a ton in the past. They're going to play and call plays more like their real life selves. It's gotten a little bit better over the years, but it's still one of those areas that isn't quite there yet. So we really don't know if this is going to work the way they told us it's going to work. But if it does, it's supposed to make the better QBs and the top teams feel harder to beat, because if you're trying to just use the same few things against them, they're going to catch on, start audibling more and switching up plays like they would in real life. Again, we really have to see this one in practice because we've heard this talked about many times over the years and it's really never quite hit home in the way that they have said it would. Number 9, commissioner tools. This is actually one of the biggest changes in my opinion for the mode this year because it allows you to customize the mode to your liking. Now, I believe at the launch of the game, there's going to be something like 12 new commissioner settings, but they said there's a long list of ones that they're going to keep dropping. Probably some will come in an update because we saw that a few years ago when they first started implementing new commissioner tools. They put them in the game during the year in updates. So I would expect to see more of these coming during the year, but at launch, there's 12 new ones that actually go a long way in my opinion. You can turn off home field advantage, something I've seen a lot of people talk about. I personally think the momentum and home field advantage is a cool thing, but a lot of people don't like it. So now you can turn that off. You can also tune the XP and regression sliders. You can now pick exactly how much more or less XP you earn at each age and position. You can make running backs regress faster, for example, how it often happens in real life. You can have QBs that regress much slower because they usually can play into older age. So now you can fine tune this down to age and position so that you get a more realistic regression system throughout the years of your franchise. They also added free agency sliders where you can set the number of players you're able to negotiate with at each stage. There's also a slider with this that factors in how much you want motivation to matter to the players. So you can turn this way up to where their motivations are going to be very strict, and if your team does not meet their motivations, you just flat out can't sign them. Or you can make it a little bit more easy to deal with where you might not have all their motivations, but if you have just one, then you have an okay chance of signing them. But you can just tweak this however you want. If you want free agency to be harder, you can turn this up and make it harder on yourself and your league. The play cooldown sliders are another one that they tweaked a little bit here. It now lets you adjust offensive and defensive cooldowns individually. So you don't have one set number like 3 plays in a row for both. You could set defense defense for once every 5 plays, and you can set offense for once every 10, 20 plays, however you want to do it. This is another huge one right here. You can now toggle off depth chart reordering so you don't have to manually fix the depth chart each time you make changes. Apparently, this was actually never a bug. It was actually done by design, which is kind of crazy because this is one of the things that drove franchise mode players absolutely insane. Now, you can toggle this off and never have to worry about it again. There's also a trade difficulty setting, which I briefly touched on a little bit earlier. So now you can make trading very easy. You can have it in the middle, you can make it hard, you can even make it very hard. And from what I've heard based on other people who have played the game early, they said that when you put it up to hard or very hard, it's actually very realistic, and it's hard to get the first overall pick in the draft, or it's very hard to get that franchise QB without either breaking the bank, or in certain situations you just can't get them at all. And that is something I think that, again, small thing when you just think about it in terms of the entire franchise mode, but it makes a big difference in terms of realism when you're playing over so many years. I believe there's also some other commissioner tools. Those are just the ones that I remember off the top of my head. I believe there are a couple other new ones in there as well. Number 10, presentation. So this is an area that a lot of people ask about when it comes to franchise mode. Most of this, from what I've seen, has stayed the same. The announcers are, yes, they're the same. I know people are tired of them, but they are still the same. The pregame and postgame and the Super Bowl stuff all looks to be the same from what I've seen. The one area that it is different is in between plays. They added a lot of different emotional stuff between plays. They even talked about this briefly on their website when they dropped the initial info. Basically now you're going to see more human interaction in between plays, which is a small thing, but it makes the games not feel such the same when you're playing games over and over. You're going to see players talk trash between plays. You're going to see them do some more celebrations. You're going to see them celebrate as a team depending on what's happening. If you get a sack, if you get team to 4th down, you know, they hold the fists up together and stuff like that. It just makes the game feel a little bit more lifelike than seeing people constantly just walking around or standing around like robots. They also added different packages for the primetime games. Now, they didn't really do a whole bunch of this, so don't get too excited. This is an area where I feel like they could go so much deeper. Even just adding different scoreboards would be a big thing here, but it ain't on that level yet. It's more so just the screen transitions and wipes. They are different depending on the primetime game, so it's not just going to say Madden primetime anymore. It'll say like Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday night. They have some different transitions in there, but outside of that, I don't think there's really any other differences, but I do think this is an area that, like I said, even just adding different scoreboards is something that's very easy, but would actually go a pretty long way in making the different games feel special. Refs are back on the field, as most people know as well, and they actually have new ref models. They even have female refs too, which is pretty cool. So the refs do finally look more up to date, because when they did have refs back in the game a few years ago, they looked very, very outdated. In terms of equipment, I've covered that in other videos, but they do have the Axiom helmet now. You can also put the hand warmer in the back. I know that's something a lot of people asked for. That is in the game now as well. And I believe at launch, there's even more new equipment coming in, probably during updates as well, because that's one thing they do update throughout the year. So apparently the word is we're getting more equipment soon, but there are a few new things to dive into at launch. Now, the last part I want to touch on is crossplay. I know a lot of people heard that crossplay is not currently for franchise mode. It's only for online head-to-head matchmaking, but EA said that it is coming sooner rather than later. They said it's not a matter of if it comes for franchise, it's when. Now, I don't know what that means. That could be a post-launch update, which is what I anticipate, but there's also a chance that could be Madden 25. I don't know. All I know is crossplay will be coming for franchise sooner rather than later, but it's not going to be in on the day the game launches. I think there's probably some more logistics and things they have to go through to make sure it's right. And with all the problems franchise mode had last year with the crashing and losing of leagues, I could see crossplay being another hurdle in there that could very easily mess up servers and mess up leagues. So if it's going to take them longer to get that right, that's probably in their best interest to just get it right and not rush that, because the last thing we need is people losing leagues again. That's the one thing that just absolutely cannot happen, or else all of these changes on this list mean absolutely nothing if you can't be confident that your league's going to still be there tomorrow. Now, if you want to know more about the gameplay side of things for Madden 24, you can check out this video right here on the screen.